I would like to call the meeting of the Board of Aldermen, the recess meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and followed by an invocation from Chaplain Tucker, who is new to the chaplaincy. We'll welcome him, and then we'll have a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chaplain Tucker.
Gracious and all-wise God, we thank you for allowing us to live this another day. We thank you now, Heavenly Father, for this meeting. We pray, oh God, that you would guide the decision and the decision-making process, that everything be done decently or for the benefit of all of our people. We ask this in thy Son Jesus' name. Amen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, everyone. Well, glad to have you all here this evening. Our first order of business now will be the approval of the official agenda, including consented agenda items, and I need to add one item under executive session pending litigation. So if the board be so kind, Mr. Latimer needs to brief us on an item that will be under executive session. So if you would add pending litigation to that. Do I have any changes, adjustments, additions? Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor, thanks. Just remove one item on that $3 million bond issue from the consent. That would be item
D?
Yes, ma'am.
Board item D. Okay,
Yes,
removed from consent. All righty. All right, any other changes, Vice Mayor?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Any other changes from any board members?
Mayor, move approval.
I have a motion for approval from, that is with the consented item as changed and the addition.
Yes.
I have a motion from Alderman Walker for the approval of the official agenda with the changes to the consented agenda items. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Alderman Little. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. And I will now proceed to read the consented agenda items. First is consideration of the minutes of the July 16th, 2019 recess meeting of the Mayor and the Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville. Consideration of the minutes of the August 2nd, 2019 work session of the meeting of the Mayor and the Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville. Under board business, we have consideration of a proclamation establishing a Starkville 2020 Consensus Complete Committee. Under department business, we have airport request approval to accept the lowest quote from Rebel Services LLC for installing an M4000 aviation self-serve terminal at the fuel farm on George M. Bryan Field in the amount of $15,910.26 and to be funded by an MDOT multimodal grant MM-0068-0920. Number two is request approval to accept the lowest quote from Rebel Services LLC for installing a Jet A hose reel, hose, and nozzle to the self-serve terminal at the fuel farm on George M. Bryan Field in the amount of $10,901.77 to be funded by an MDOT multimodal grant MM-0068-0920. Under code enforcement, we have consideration of calling for a public hearing under Mississippi Code annotated 21-1911 to determine whether the building 19 of Brooksville Garden Apartments located at 305 Everglade Avenue is a menace to the public health, safety, and welfare of the community. Under courts, we have consideration of approval from the municipal court clerk to attend training of Biloxi September 11th through the 13th of 2019, with all expenses to be paid by the Mississippi Judicial College. Under Finance Administration, we have request acceptance of the July financial statements. Under the Fire Department, we have consideration to declare the 2006 Ladder 1 fire engine surplus at time of arrival of new replacement truck and to begin the bid process to sell Ladder 1 VIN 4P1CD01E46A0064437 to the highest and best bidder. Under Human Resources, we have request authorization to advertise for a building official in the Community Development Department. Request authorization to hire Jacob Davenport as a grounds maintenance worker for the Airport Department. Request authorization to hire Courtney Cox as an airport operations manager in the Starkville Airport Department. Request authorization to advertise for a driver in the Sanitation Environmental Services Department. Request authorization to hire Gregory Grayer, Eric Purnell, and Roger Richardson as maintenance workers 2 in the Sanitation Environmental Services Department, and to retain the candidates from the selection process held on August 6, 2019 for consideration to fill any additional vacant positions in the sanitation department due to retirements, terminations, or approved additions to the sanitation department within a period of 90 days. Request authorization to advertise for a chief of police in the Starkville Police Department. Request authorization to advertise for a lead maintenance worker in the Parks and Recreation Department. Under Parks, consideration of the approval of the facility use agreement with the Starkville Christian Home Educators for use of athletic fields for their football, soccer, and volleyball programs. And under Police Department, request authorization to allow Captain Mark Ballard and Accreditation Manager Shonda Deloche to attend the 2019 CALEA Conference in Covington, Kentucky, November the 13th through the 16th, 2019, at a total estimated cost of $4,250. Request authorization to allow Officer Dylan Bowers to attend the Tier 1 Combat Shooting Course at the North Mississippi Law Enforcement Training Center, September 25th through 26th, 2019, at an estimated cost of $200. And consideration for approval for the Starkville Police Department to apply for and accept, if awarded, a 100% reimbursable grant in the amount of $24,411 for an automated fingerprint identification system. And that concludes the consent agenda items.
Thank you, Mayor.
And my pleasure. Thank you, Alderman Vaughn. All right, the next item we have is mayor's comments, and first let me acknowledge Supervisor Miller as a supervisor. So she is joining us in another role, but I do want to acknowledge her being here with us tonight, and welcome. It's always nice to have you in the audience and making your presentation. So I also want to talk, we have SHS football team plays their first game in Brandon this Friday, and Alderman Vaughn says that they have an outstanding team and a great pitching or passing game, so we're looking forward to. I think they're rated number 1, are they not? I believe so. So we're looking forward to a great season. We also have the last community market coming up this Saturday. This last Saturday community market will be coming up, and then we also have the approval for the Reed Road Affordable Housing Project has been approved. So looking forward to all of that coming together in our community. Looking forward to a lot of good things. It's going to be a great fall. So anyone from the Board of Aldermen who has anything they'd like to, Vice Mayor Perkins.
Mayor, just very briefly, I need to take this moment to recognize my pastor. I was coming in, and with my usual greetings, as I was coming in, I got up here and I said hello to the mayor and the colleagues, and Dr. Tucker is the new pastor at Mount P Missionary Baptist Church, and a very distinguished individual, and we're just excited to have him here in Starkville. And Dr. Tucker, we were at church last night, but we just didn't get a moment to converse about tonight. So, but so glad to have you here, and thank you for representing the church in the city so extremely well. Thank you for being here.
All right, anyone else? And we'll welcome back Alderman Little. Glad to have you back with us. I appreciate you. All right, we next have citizens' comments, and for those who have not experienced our citizens' comments, it is 3 minutes to provide input to the board. We generally do not respond. On occasion we might, but usually we do not. So if you'd like to come talk to us about anything in particular, you are welcome to take 3 minutes to do so.
Good evening to the mayor and board. My name is Alvin Turner.
Good evening, Mr.
Ward
Turner.
7, to the mayor, to the police chief, our safety, our citizens. We're still hoping that we can get a handle on this racing and stuff, because now we have school soon be back, and we definitely don't want nobody run over nobody for a thrill. We're hoping that we can get a handle on it. We already have a good, they speak highly of chips that you can't see, but when you know anything, you got blue lights. That will slow you down. And we just admire that, but we have people that coming in from other places, and they might not know. But we appreciate the motorcycle guys and everyone that keep us safe. But somewhere or another, we're going to have to get a handle on this racing. I guess they changed time on the rebroadcasting of the board meeting. I've been missing it. Also, we hoping that the sanitation department could find some deodorize or something for those bins because they really send off strong odor. And that's just some things that they want to bring to your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Anyone else wishing to speak to the board? Anyone else?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Board, on the behalf of the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally Board, I'd like to thank y'all for your participation and help and support in that, and to the police department on the great job with the ride, the sanitation department, and the fire department with the nice dinner. It turned out to be a real good one this year with forecast of no rain and no rain on top of that. So this year, we're on the positive side of things, which helps with making something happen next year. Don't know
Great.
what's going to happen, but just want to thank all y'all for your support.
Absolutely.
It was great.
Congratulations.
Okay,
It was
thank
fun
y'all.
having it in town.
Mhm.
Okay, anyone else? All right, seeing none, we will go to public appearances, and this is always fun. Ms. Supervisor Miller, would you like to come forward and make your presentation of the horse park?
How is everybody tonight?
We are good.
Before I get started on the 20-year celebration, it's hard to believe that it's 20 years now. I wanted to thank you as my role as supervisor and the projects that we've completed together inside the city limits during my term. You know, we worked together on the Loxley Way project. I appreciate that. Airport Road, we upgraded that from a chip seal to an asphalt, and also South Montgomery. And we're currently, we took that and upgraded that from a chip seal also to a asphalt road, and came also inside the city limits to do that. I appreciate the opportunity for that. And of course now working on the bridge project that we are in Pleasant Acres. So I have enjoyed working with many aspects of y'all, but those specific areas in my district. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So how exciting, 20 years of the horse park, of a partnership that is so very, very successful. How Agri-Centers got started in Mississippi is former Commissioner of Agriculture Jim Buck Ross believed that every community should have a horse facility. So he started a matching grant program. The cities and the counties were to match. The state allocated $15 million for 54 projects. The municipalities matched and exceeded the state money by $3.5 million. And in return, Mississippi has at that point, had 72 publicly funded arenas in 64 counties valued at $70 million. We were built during the same time, as you know, but we were built on 2 separate state bonds for $6 million. So you can see where we've come as a partnership. It started as a partnership. It's continued as a partnership. It's been very, very successful. So this is what we looked like in the beginning. We were 4 metal buildings on a gravel road. Who remembers that? You can see in that top picture on the shovel, you might recognize a few of those people. I think Dr. Foyle and Dr. Zacharias and Steve Holland. And I believe he'll even be joining us for the 20-year celebration. And then the bottom newspaper clipping right there is actually from the very first GTR fair. And you'll see that there's Mr. Bobby and Lauren Zimmerman and Mr. Tommy Prentice. So that was our first thing that we kicked off with. If you remember, many of us were on the Fair Commission Board, like myself. So you can see the fair, we had that in 99, 2000, and 2001. On the top in the center picture, you might recognize some of those gentlemen right there, Mr. Jones and Ed Williams and Dallas Broadnecks. They were part of the members of the board. I do not remember the other gentlemen in the picture's names, but you can see the fair midway that was there. And you know what I like to look at too is if you drive out there now and you look at even the grass and how well manicured the facility is, that it looks like a golf course, and you look at how far we've come, even those aspects, you know, of it, it's amazing. There on the bottom in the wagon, that was part of the fair too. And if you remember, Stuart Vance used to own Express Personnel, and that was part of their contribution to the fair. And that's actually me sitting in the middle right there. That next picture in the center, that's Amy Tuck campaigning in 1999 at a political rally during the fair. So a lot of great memories. Kip Brown on the right, because it included a lot of things, but it brought the community together to get the facility started. So these were some of the fun ads that we ran to say, do you know, or do you remember? And I think it was very important to remind people through these advertisements how far we've come. So when it first opened, the horse park was called the MSU Agri Center. But it was very important because we were a partnership and we knew that we needed to be branded to gather people together to decide what it was going to be. So Deborah Schaefer owned Ducks Deluxe at the time, and she gathered some talented Mississippi State students, and together we came up with the logo and the slogan, Mississippi Horse Park. And it was much easier for me to call. I began 19 years ago. It was much easier for me to call and the opening line be, we're the Mississippi Horse Park. You know, it was much easier to sell the facility that way. So it was really important to make sure that everybody was included in this partnership and in the partnership name. On the right-hand side right there, I know a lot of you remember when the road was still gravel. And I remember when I got a phone call from Don Posey, and he said, Brickley, we're going to try to get some funding to get the road paved. And I remember Mabel Murphy was with the ARC office, and I did a PowerPoint presentation for them and others. And she looked at me before she left, and she said, you need a paved road, don't you? And in 2004, the horse park, the road was paved. So this is a prime example of how tourism can be an economic driver in the area. We now know the development that's happened out there. We know Sunnyland had just started, but you know how it's developed, all the other subdivisions that are out there, and even Hell State Boulevard, and how the south side of town is organically growing the quickest. So in the next slide was just some more did you knows. When we opened in '99, we had 23 events, and last year we hosted 134. So that's a substantial amount of activities going on in the park. And then the next one, did you know, and this is just where we started becoming, to the people that were visiting our facility, we started becoming known worldwide, I mean nationwide. You can see in 2006, that's when we received the honor of being picked as one of the most fabulous facilities from the Barrel Horse News. We didn't know until that article came out, and so that was absolutely wonderful that there were 10 facilities in there. We were placed in the article next to facilities like Oklahoma City, and at the time we only had 4 employees. We have 5 now, but they had 500 employees. You know, so it was nice, even though we weren't the largest facility in the country, people saw our efforts and still felt like that we were valuable and had quality and enjoyed coming to the horse park. And of course, on the bottom right, that's when we have accepted the Best Footing Award. It's very important for horse people to have great footing. And 3 times at the National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas, I've stood on the stage and accepted an award for us having the best footing in our arena. So as of this ad of May 2019, we had held 965 events. That was an average of 48 a year. It was real important when I started at the horse park for us to start tracking those economic numbers. You know, we all want to know the value of the event. So Dr. Al Miles created an economic impact template, which we've used, and from 2001 to 2018, our economic impact of the horse park events is $43 million. So one thing that makes this really unique is the diversity in what we do. You know, we service the city and the county, we service the university, but we also want to make sure that the diversity of the events that we have, and so you can see there's everything from garden shows and dog shows, expos, educational activities with Farmtastic, cross country, square dancing at the Baptist Student Barn Party, banquets, that actually was the Catch a Dream right there, production sales, team roping, circuses, concerts, haunted horse park, you name it, we do it at the horse park. So when I began, I thought it would be fun to take the newspaper clippings from national magazines and local newspapers and place them down the horse park wall. And so you can walk and you can see the wall is just filled with publications where we have been highlighted all over the country in different magazines for different things. And so we call it the Walk of Fame. The first event that we ever sold out for spectator-wise was for the motocross in 2006. Todd was a promoter from Oklahoma City, and he was a fantastic promoter. It's important that you have quality people that do quality events. And other than just motocross, he brought the first freestyle show to our area. People had never seen reverse back flips on a motorcycle. I had never seen it. And the ceilings are 85 feet high, and those guys would fly off those mounds of dirt into the air, do those spread eagle things, and it was just an amazing event. And what was really amazing to me is when I had to call on the radio and tell Bryant to stop the cars coming in because they were sitting in the steps, and thank goodness the fire marshal was in there with us. Yeah. So we had a fantastic event that night, but that was a really fun thing. Who remembers when we had the partnership banquet out there on the arena floor? That was probably a memorable moment for the people that were out there. We put a tent on the arena floor, and nobody came out of their coats that night. It was a cold night, and we never could get it as warm as we wanted to, but just a fantastic memory. We're grateful now to have the meal to host those types of events. Concerts, of course, that we've had. And then when you look at the track, we've done many things on the track. We've had harness racing. That's Arabian racing that we had. We run cross country on that track now, and then also we do community walks, which you'll see that we're fixing to have coming up in the future. And the bottom picture on the right there, do y'all remember that we housed hurricane victims? And this little boy in this picture right here, his pony stayed with us along with other horses for several weeks, and people in the community donated money, and we went and got hay and kept these animals, and these people knew that we were taking good care of them, and when they could take them back to Florida or South Mississippi, they came back and picked them up. So again, just community service. So other than specific disciplines, we do specific breed shows. We've done everything that you can think of. This is an Arabian show, and that's Ada McGreevy right there on the left. Mike and Janet Caraway, which live local, produce these shows forever. That's us on the cover right there. That's in the arena of the Modern Arabian Horse magazine that goes out, nationwide to anybody that loves Arabians. So just variety in the things that we do and diversity in the horse events. Tennessee Walking and Spotted Saddle Horse. Alpha Gamma Road produced Tennessee Walking horse shows, if you remember that. And then the Shriners Club, and a lot of y'all may remember Chris Nettles. He also worked at MSU in the parking service. He always had the cigar in his mouth. But anyway, we had great Tennessee Walking horse shows. And then Kim and Steve Parrott did the Spotted Saddle Horse shows. They're local people as well. They produce those along with Mississippi Spotted Horse Club. So discipline shows as well. So barrel racing has been something that we've been very successful in because, like I said, our footing is very good. It's very diverse in what we do. In that top left picture, that's Mary Jane Carpenter. She actually produced 26 barrel racing super shows in her time when she was producing events at the horse park and paid out over $1 million in prizes. That's what encourages people to come. She also produced the 2 PBR events, if you remember. We had Justin McBride and J.W. Hart. We had Mossy Oak Mud here, Slinger here. We had Hammer, if y'all remember, and we had the challenge where somebody local could get on the PBR bull. So 2 fantastic events, and I'm excited to say that I'm in conversations with a promoter from Arkansas to bring that back possibly next year. Producers come from all over, and you think, why would a producer come from a long ways away to rent our facility? So on the right, when you see Fortune 5, those producers were from Missouri. And then you turn the page and we look at Lucky Dog. They're from Arkansas. They sell the facility out every single time. The first time that we ever sold the facility out for stalls and RVs was in 2002. And we've just continued to grow that way. This is another event that we produce, and we produce the horse pour barrel race in-house. We do a little more of that now to take up any extra weekends to make sure we're stimulating the economy and growing our revenue base. And so in 2013, the horse park staff was named VBR National Producer of the Year. That is the largest divisional barrel racing association in the country. So we were selected, our horse park and our event was selected best in the United States in 2013. We also were one of the few places, there were only 11 qualifiers for the American. That's where barrel racers get to pay a $500 entry fee, and if they make the top 10, they qualify to go to the semifinals in Fort Worth, and then they run in the AT&T Stadium for the chance to win $1 million. There were only 11 facilities across the country that hosted one of those, and we were one of those events. Quarter horse shows. You know, this is something else that we've done. Host the oldest quarter horse show in the state. In 2012, it was 53 years old. In 2011, the horse park staff was asked to take on this show, and so we looked at it and we revamped what was going on with it. And from 2011 to 2012, we saw a 267% increase in entries, and from 2012 to 2013, another 91%, and that was 3,808 entries from across the states that came and visited with us. The PRCA Rodeo, y'all know how this has developed. In 2003, that's the stock contractor that I called and asked him. He was from Texas. His name's Scotty Lovelace, and it was like booking a rock star before they got their first big hit, because he was named National Stock Contractor of the Year at Las Vegas that very next year. And I called Scotty after calling James Harper and Morgan, you know, that do the Dixie Nationals, and I said, I need somebody to partner with to start a great pro rodeo in our community. And they said, well, call Scotty. And so we did that a couple of years, and then the Rotary Club took it over, and you know what's happened from there. It has become a fantastic community event. And if you look at some of these publications, if you look at that publication on the right, the Pro Sports News, that's the national publication for all pro rodeos. Y'all see that picture right there? We're on the same page with the Houston Livestock Rodeo. They get 1.3 million people come to their rodeo, and our picture is bigger than theirs. So, you know, it's just really, really nice to see that something in your community is being so well thought of worldwide. Some more excuse me, I can't spit that word out tonight. The Crystal Pineapple Tourism Award. We received that. We were grateful for that. You can see Horse Central 10 years strong. That's George Phillips, if y'all remember. And Miss Mary on the cover right there, she actually showed in the Quarter Horse Show when it was in the old Ag building here on campus. Fabulous facilities again, and then the Las Vegas Awards, among many. So another thing that we do is the diversity in what we do. We now host all of the MSU preview students that come in. So for MSU Preview Day, they come to the horse park and they park, and we bus them onto campus. So they are the very first experience that new students have when they come onto campus. It's the same thing with our RVs. We are the first positive experience that people experience when they come into our community. So we're so grateful for that. We're already sold out for 2 games for our plug-ins, and that's for Alabama and LSU. We still have some drop parking available, and we had several book already, you know, today. We'll have on the big games, we'll host about 150 RVs out there.
And they get bussed in on game days as well?
We do. We bus them from there. That's part of the fee that they pay.
Okay, cool.
Yes. So you can see how the event growth has occurred and what it's done. And some of that was strategic planning. We actually have had 978 events to date. You can see how we started off, and at first I was like, well, we got to get people using the facility. And then I realized we've got to get multi-day events. So we went from making sure people knew what the facility was like and generating that buzz around the state and around the country to strategically picking events that were more beneficial to not just the facility, but also to the community, because they were bringing people in from other states with new dollars from 90 miles away or further, and they were staying in our community for multi-days. Still this year, we've got left to go. We've got SAPA Back to School Roundup this weekend. That's open to the public. That's a fun event. We got football RVs. The labs and classes will start for Mississippi State out there next week. And of course, we got Farmtastic, which is an educational event, and many other activities. I'm excited too for 2020. You'll see some of our favorites come back, like Dog Show and the Rotary Rodeo and also some barrel racing events. But then we've also booked some new things. So Solo, which is a dressage show, Solo Flight is the name of it. It's a dressage show. So we'll have dressage out there this next year. And like I said, I'm working on a PBR event as well. So it's important that for you, that me as a facility director grow the facility. And we don't want to just grow it in numbers, we want to grow it in financials. And that way we're not as dependent on you. It's a full shared partnership. You know, it's the city and the county and the university, but it's also the event revenue, which is part of the private sector that's contributing to that. So you can see the event revenue and how it trended. That little dip in there, that's during the recession time, if y'all remember. And just like anything, that's extra money that somebody has to come in. And so, you know, we saw a little dip in that, but you can see how we've continued to skyrocket. We saw a small dip in 2018. That was because of some budget cuts, and I was a little cautious about producing some events in-house. So how do we look financially if you divide out the pie? And, you know, I'm extremely excited about how this has changed, as well as the revenue growth and the event growth that we've seen. In 99 to 2000, you can see how the percentages were. And then you can also see from 2018 to 2019 how much the event revenue and everything else. And I want to let you know that we still run a 100-acre facility for under $500,000 and have as many events as we have. And I will tell you, when you look at other facilities, even that are smaller than us, I'm going to use the Lauderdale County Agri Center, which is just a covered type arena with very little. They get $1 million a year from Lauderdale County, which is a little over $500,000 to run their facility. And we run a much larger facility, much more pristine looking grass, gravel, and those types of things for a much less amount. So what are other people saying about us? We love to toot our own horn, but we love when other people brag on us as well. And so this is just some of the posts you can read on there, talking about how they loved coming to the facility. You know, nothing is better than somebody to talk about you, and that's how we have had people come and book the facility, is from those positive responses. So I just wanted to thank y'all again for the opportunity, not just tonight, but for your dedication through the past 20 years. I mean, you bought in the beginning, and you said, okay, we're going to partner on this. And I know that your guarantee was for 3 years. And then, you know, I was grateful enough to come in, and I said, we're going to make this work together. And I believe that it's something that is so beneficial to all of us. And I'm so grateful that I've had the opportunity to work for y'all, and that you've stayed with it, because it takes that trust to make something like this grow. And we have grown it to something that is so phenomenal that everybody in the country knows how wonderful we are in the horse industry. And I just want to thank you for that. I want to invite all of you to come out to the 20-year celebration. The mayor may have already gotten a phone call. She may get asked to speak. But Paul Gallo will be live on Friday, September the 6th. That's the Friday before the first home football game, from 6 to 9 o'clock. He will be live. We'll serve free breakfast to anybody that wants to come out and eat with us. And I know Dr. Keenum will be on during the 7 o'clock hour. I think Steve Holland's going to come down and talk about his experience as a legislator funding this from shovel to now. So there'll be several people that are on the radio that morning, and I encourage the community to come out and take advantage of this time to look at what you have helped to develop, because we certainly could not have done it without you.
Vice Mayor?
Mayor, let me just take this moment of personal privilege to say to the supervisor that over the last 20 years, I have certainly been consistently impressed with your presentations, including the information. As you said, that there was a guarantee of 3 years. You remember Ms. Bill, Dr. Zitter, the Alderman at large, and we all, Alderman Nikovich, we're all on the budget committee and the boards, and
Sure.
And you just endured and always came with a great passion, and you have not lost any of it. And that's what great leaders do. So I just very intently listened to it, because I know that when you came to the podium, and as you have consistently done every year, that you have always had a wealth of information. And those of us who may not go out to the horse park, if we just sit here and just observe and listen, then we'll be well informed, well educated. So I was not going to let this moment get by, because I look forward to it every year that you come, and I must say that other board members throughout the 20 years, I can legitimately say that, have always enjoyed, have talked about it, even after the meetings, how much they have enjoyed the presentation. So I didn't want you to leave tonight, given the fact that you've been with us for 20 years, and it's good for people who have been on that journey to who have observed to just give you a very legitimate and straightforward comment about the observation. So just keep up the great work, and I have really enjoyed it, and you always have convinced us when the 3-year guarantee is about to end to continue that funding. So you're to be commended for your great work. Thank you. May I yield?
Thank you, Alderman.
And I also want to say, I think personally, I think you're a rock star when it comes to lots of things, but in particular this. And I have had the privilege of watching you make these presentations since 2005, and I've always been impressed. And you continue to show that growth that you're showing on those graphs. I do believe this is economic development, and I have long used it as an example of the things that happen in our community that are very, very positive. So thank you for that, and thank you for adding things inside the city limits as a supervisor. So anyone else?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have a
Appreciate
great
your
day.
time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alderman
Oh, I'm
Vaughn.
sorry.
Wrigley, you missed one of your events. You mixed Relay for Life. You had Relay for Life.
We did, yes, sir, and we would be
And I
glad to
attended
host that
those.
again. If they would want to come back out. We turned those fans on, and it was really, really cool. And
Yeah, it was
it wasn't inside, but, we used that packer, and we packed the ground down, and we had that track. And so if Relay for Life would like to come back, we would love to have them. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. All right, our next item under public appearances is Ms. Felicia Ashford.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms.
My
Ashford.
name is Felicia Ashford, and I'm here as a sports person asking the board for future fundings for the Mississippi Gold Chasers Track and Field Organization. There are kids that compete from state to state. There are ages 5 through 18 with a few 3- and 4-year-olds having the opportunity and being a part of a family-like organization that's here to help them excel to the next level in and out of school, helping them with their self-esteem, overcoming their fears, and hoping to keep them off the streets and being taken in by a gang. A few statistics on the Mississippi Gold Chasers Track and Field Organization past year season. There were 33 kids that competed in 6 meets. That was Trussellville, Alabama, Alpharetta, Georgia, Hoover, Alabama, Memphis, Tennessee, Madison, Mississippi, Fort Walton Beach, Florida, which was a nice vacation. But not all of them was able to compete in the regional in Hammond, Louisiana, due to the fact of lack of funds. We had 12 kids that could have advanced from the regional in Hammond, Louisiana, to the junior national championship in Greensboro, North Carolina. Mind you, these are some kids that have never left Mississippi, Starkville, Mississippi at that. So this was just an adventure for them, and all having fun and doing it in a respectful manner and enjoying themselves. But due to being a week-long meet in Hammond, Louisiana, and not having transportation and other funds, they were not able to compete. A few kids that could have made it was Caden Walker. He's the age of 10. He was in the 100 meter with a time of 1.12 seconds. Zaylin Bishop, she's a young girl. She's 10 in the 100-yard meter with a time of 16.22. Zaria Edwards, age 12, in the shot put, she threw 25 feet, first year ever trying. The girls, 9 and 10-year-old, 4 by 100 relay team with a time of 1.055 seconds. A little young man, we call him Super Baby, but his name is Cameron Daniels. He's 5 years old. When I tell you he's an inspiration to the big kids, they call him, he say, super baby. In the 400 meter with a time of 1.30 seconds. The boys, 9 and 10-year-old 4x100 meter with a time of 1.02. Mind you, this is a nonprofit organization, and I'm not asking the board for a set amount of anything. Whatever you can do to help these kids is all I'm asking. Also, in front of you, you will have a picture, a team picture of several kids, missing about 10 of them because we had 33, and the past year expenditure report. Now, if you look at that expenditure report, 80% of that report was clearly done through fundraising. So on that report, it's like $11,000. So those kids, I had the liberty of getting out there helping those kids to do fundraising to raise $11,000 to do some of the things and to go some of the places that they have gone. We are predicting that the numbers of the kids for the upcoming year, not to double, but to triple. Because the kids, the 33 that are on the season, with the season this past year, has already spread the word. We already have a good 15, 20 more kids already ready for the next season. Also, in June 2020, we're projected to host our very own AAU track meet. And with that, that means 12 to 15 teams attending. This means that will bring revenue to our city, profits, hotels, and other business. These kids work hard and should have been recognized from our hometown had the funds been available for them to compete. I'm asking that you, our Board of Aldermen, help make a difference in our kids with your consideration and support. So I ask that you please consider them in your budget for our upcoming year once again. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and they are also, like I stated, it's a 501c3 status for this organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ashford.
Ma'am, I'll be recognized.
Alderman Vaughn.
Ms. Ashford, how many, I see it started in January, how many events did y'all get a chance to participate in
We
last
only
year?
participated in 6 events. The 7th event that we was going to participate in was Hammond, Louisiana. But because we didn't have the funds, nor we did not know, parents did not know that it was a week-long meet, so that was going to cost a good bit. And in order for a child to go somewhere, and I'm a grandmother, I prefer to have a parent to assist that child. So if the parent could not, and some of the parents are pretty much poverty parents, so they could not access, they didn't have the resource to do, or the finances to do and go to participate in the Hammond, Louisiana track meet. So that would have made 7.
Mayor Board, I'd like to make a motion while we're doing the budget, while we're working on the budget, that we prorate $5,000 to help them. If they can get out and raise $12,000, almost $12,000, I'm sure we can go through our budget and find $5,000 to help them. If not $5,000, but I'm sure that we can do something while we're working on the budget, because we got, how many more budget meetings do we have?
We have a public hearing today, and then we will have a public hearing and a vote on the first meeting in September. Is that the 6th?
Yes. Or no, the 3rd.
Third.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
I have a motion from Alderman Vaughn for budgeting, did you say $5,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have a motion from Alderman Vaughn. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Alderman Beatty. Further discussion.
I would like to just say that the budget is balanced right now. I would ask that you also let me know, or let the city clerk know, since she's the one that does all this, where you'd like that $5,000 to come from. So it will have to come from some other line, and you don't have to do that tonight. We can do it next meeting, but it has to come from somewhere.
You the budget chair, you tell us where you gonna get it from.
I haven't. I have, short of taking it from a department or from some other agency, Meals on Wheels, some other agency. There is no cushion there. it's flat. I'll be glad to look with you later and help you identify something, but I'm not gonna do that. I'd like for you to do both.
Okay, we'll discuss it in our budget meeting.
Okay.
Okay, further discussion? Okay, I want to ask a question because I don't have a recollection. I do not recall that we have ever given any budget money to sporting teams, because there are lots and lots of teams in this community, in this town, and I am fairly regularly asked as an individual and a business to support teams, which I have been willing to do and certainly have been happy to do. But I don't know that the board has ever done that. Vice Mayor Perkins, do you have a recollection of, from a budget standpoint, us ever supporting individual sporting teams?
Mayor, just to be fully responsive to your inquiry, over my course of tenure on this board as a member, the board has just basically looked at each case over the years. There's been no consistent practice, custom, and policy. I've seen it go so many different ways, Mary.
Okay, I just knew you had the longest.
No, I'm just giving you the correct answer. The board, it's been no consistent. Some nights I get here and wonder, where's the policy? And the votes were there, and it happened.
Okay.
And we moved on to the next item. So, but just wanted to be fully responsive to you. There's been no particular policy. It's not something that we normally do, but as to your inquiring for the board's information, it's going to just boil down to what the board wants to do as a policy. But as from a athletic, normally it's the library type, the horse park, the Habitat for the Humanity, those type. But those hospitality type related programs and events. But just in full disclosure to you, it's a matter of how the board wants to proceed with policy. That's how it is concluded.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you. I
ma'am.
didn't mean to put you
No,
on the
no,
spot.
no,
I just knew you had your 25 plus years.
No,
and
no,
might
I'm
remember
never,
some of
I'm
that.
never on the spot.
Okay.
I enjoy this job. I'm never on the spot, so I want to be fully responsive. But that's not something we generally do.
Okay,
Not generally do.
all right, thank you. Alderman Beatty.
Alderman Vaughn, would you consider rescinding this until we can get in this budget stuff and look at it and see if we can find that money and then do it appropriately after we found somewhere to pull that money out of?
Yeah, that's why I said we'll discuss it in our budget
Is
meeting.
that form of
That's
rescind
fine for me,
emotional man?
because I want to get in a discussion now, because I can think of many entities that we have given money to, so that's why I said let's discuss it at the budget meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
So I guess my second is rescinded.
Okay, and Alderman Vaughn, you're rescinding your motion? All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Ashford, thank you very much for your
Thank
presentation.
you, Ms. Ashford.
Thank you all.
Okay. All right, the next item is public hearing consideration of a conditional use 19-08, a request for conditional use to allow for a mobile home on a lot located on the west side of Greta Lane, approximately 1,275 feet south of the railroad, crossing an R5 zone with parcel number 103P08012. Mr. Havlin.
CU 1908 is a conditional use request by Roy and Linda Reeves to allow for a mobile home to be placed on Greta Lane, approximately 1,275 feet south of the railroad crossing. The property is split zoned C2 and R5, and in order to place a mobile home on the property, a conditional use is required for the City of Starkville permitted and conditional use chart. 8 property owners of record within 300 feet of the subject property were notified directly by mail of the request. A public hearing was noticed in the Starkville Daily News on July 26, and a sign posted on the property concurrent with the publication of the notice. As of this date, the planning office has received no phone calls regarding this request. Appendix A, Article 6, Section 1 of the City's Code of Ordinance provides 5 specific criteria for conditional use review and approval. Number 1, land use compatibility. The proposed use of mobile home could be considered compatible with the adjacent land use. And the comprehensive plan has the area place type as optional district, which in the description for optional district doesn't directly address mobile homes. Number 2, sufficient site size and adequate site specifications to accommodate the proposed use. The site is adequately sized to accommodate the proposed use. Proper use of mitigative techniques, none were proposed. Hazardous waste, no hazardous waste or materials. Compliance with applicable laws and ordinances. The applicant is responsible for obtaining permits as required by the city of Starkville in the state prior to the occupancy of the dwelling. There was one requested condition from planning and zoning that the applicant shall have 6 months from the time of conditional use approval to begin the permitting process with the city. That's it. On this slide, this was from planning and zoning. We had misprinted the actual condition in there, so I forgot to replace this slide.
Okay, all right. All right, any questions to Mr. Haviland? Alderman Walker?
Can you go back to the image? Yeah. So I just want to make sure that I understand how this lot is actually.
It is odd looking.
Yeah, that looks.
The lot actually touches Greta Lane right here, and then comes this way and then around, and then it surrounds this other lot in the middle. So that's why it has that weird shape.
Okay, so.
And they're planning on placing this in the front portion in this area.
Okay, so just to make sure that there's a clean record moving forward, is it two different lots, or is it all considered one lot?
That is all considered one lot from what the tax parcel records are.
Okay, it's just sort of interesting. So in that, if it's going to be located in that front parcel, it would meet any setback requirements, so forth?
Yes, it should. It's a fairly large area, so they should have no issue with the setbacks. But that's something we'd have to verify when it's time to place it.
Thank you.
So what's the little square or rectangle?
It's actually another lot that's kind of carved out of the middle of it.
Yeah, but so it has no frontage?
The lot in the center doesn't. The lot in question does. It's actually fronts on 25.
Same ownership though? Same ownership though? Both
Same
lots?
family.
I'm not sure of the lot in the middle. We were just focused on the
Okay.
actual lot that was for the request.
Okay, all right, all right. Is the applicant here? Mr. Reeves, is that correct? Would you like to come up? Do you have anything you'd wish to share with the board?
Well, this is something new to me. I'm just.
No, I understand, you're fine.
I just moved down here from
Okay.
Chicago.
Okay,
So that whole property belongs to my whole family, the whole section,
okay, both pieces?
the whole thing.
Okay,
And just my sisters and brothers, we own all that property. And I just want to put a double wide trailer right there in that spot.
okay, okay.
There,
Any question, Alderman Sistrum?
there are mobile homes on that street
Yes,
already.
on the back, down further.
And your neighbors, I think, are going to be your family members. If I
Oh, it's
spoke
all
to.
one family.
Yep, I spoke to Ms. Bentrice this
Oh,
morning.
okay.
So,
Thank you.
so and from what I understand, there have been no comments received from
No,
from
there hasn't.
City Planning's office. So.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Welcome home.
Alderman
Now
Vaughn?
I'd like to make a motion.
Well, I need to do a public hearing.
Public hearing.
Alderman Vaughn, let me do that, and then I'll certainly entertain your motion. All right, at this point in time, we need to hold a public hearing on this item. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak either for or against this item? Either for or against? All right, thank you. I'll close this as a public hearing. Alderman Vaughn, would you like to make your motion now?
Yes, ma'am, I make the motion. I move approval of this, of CU 1908, a request for conditional use after filing for a mobile home to be placed on the Greta Lane with one condition by P and Z.
All right, thank you, Alderman Vaughn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Sistrunk. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it's unanimous. Thank you all. Thank you, and welcome home. All right, this is now the time we'll have our first public hearing on the 2019-2020 budget and tax millage for the city of Starkville. And I will open it as a public hearing. If anyone wishes to speak on this matter, now would be the time. Anyone wishing to speak on the matter of the public hearing for the millage for the budget for 2019-2020? All right, seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry. Come on. You gotta be quick.
Yes, Chris Taylor.
Yes.
What's up?
Yes.
And I just want to make sure that as you do look at the budget, that you can't help the two unit, the AAU and the other, I forgot what the other one, it was AAU, it was the women's shelter. I think they requested some money also. So if you can find it in the budget, which I know you can, please help them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Anyone else? Anyone else? All right, seeing none, I'll close it as a public hearing. Any discussion among the board members?
I'm going to ask
Alderman
for
Carver.
the list of outside contributions to be pulled up, if that's something we're going to discuss.
Can you locate
Do
that,
you have it
Mr.?
on file, or? I was looking for it in our packet, and I couldn't pull it up exclusively for that.
City Clerk, can you give him some direction?
To go to the Z drive? What if I email it to you?
I'm on the Z drive.
He's on the Z drive.
Right. You're gonna have to go into one of my files. Can you get into my file?
Do we want to do that way?
Yeah, I'll do that.
And then you're gonna have to look.
Take a recess and do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Take a recess.
I tell you what, let's provide that. Alderman Carver, what was your interest? Let's see if we can do that without going through this.
Basically, the discussion we're having about the AAU, and I've coached several of these kids, pretty unorthodox just to bring it in. And we talk about precedent oftentimes. I know Vice Mayor Perkins has often tried to dwindle that down, and I've been with him on many of those line items throughout the outside contributions. So I probably wouldn't support a $5,000 request. Maybe if it failed, I'd support I will go on record as supporting a $2,500 request, but already Mr. Taylor has come up with another request, and I guess I would say, just out of precedent, have all of the outside contribution requests in before we get into the public hearing side, just so we can, and Vice Mayor Perkins is correct, it's totally discretionary. I would say that over the years, I've seen some go up and some go down, and it's kind of hammered out at the table, and that's fine, but late requests, I'm afraid we're going to open the floodgates for others on the next public hearing, so I will go on record as far as if the $5,000 request doesn't pass, I will support a $2,500, $5,000, and that's the reason I wanted the list up. Seems pretty extravagant from my memory. I could be wrong, but maybe the next public hearing, just have that list available.
We'll make sure that list is available and we can have it readily to look at the next public
I
hearing.
mean, I'm sorry, we have discussed $250 ad requests, $500 ad requests, so 5,000, 10 to 25% more seems extravagant at the table, but I think that's maybe the list coming up now.
No.
It wasn't ready? Okay.
That's still a general fund. No,
I'll just request that list at the next meeting.
Okay, we'll be sure to do, and we'll get it to you prior to that as well. So
Yes,
you
ma'am.
have a chance to look at it. All right, Alderman Sistrunk, did I see your hand?
And all I really wanted to say was that we do have a process for outside contribution requests. We ask for those by July 1st of each year. We ask for a certain amount of documentation that comes with those requests. And we have, over the last few years, and from my recollection of my previous term on the board too, generally not had new agencies that we're adding to these outside contributions. I will absolutely get with Alderman Vaughn and take a look and see if there's something that he thinks can be moved around within the budget. Most of those outside contributions are going to be to the library, to the Humane Society, to the horse park, those kinds of things. The Boys and Girls Club gets a small amount. Brick Fire gets a small amount. They're just a handful of agencies. We do have an advertising line in there that has $1,500 in it. That one I remember for some reason. But there's $1,500 in there, and that's where we typically will pull those contributions for the NAACP banquet program or other agencies that request an ad in a program.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Anyone else? Okay. All right, under board business, we have consideration of a resolution, the mayor and the board of aldermen of the city of Starkville determining the necessity for invoking the authority granted to municipalities with respect to a tax increment financing, which would be a TIF. So we have that, and Mr. Gurus, would you like to come forward? And this is the TIF that is related to Mr. Castleberry's proposal, and Mr. Gurish, you're going to make that presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I don't know whether you can see that or not, but briefly, I'm here on behalf of Castle Starkville LLC. Mark Castleberry is the principal. He has the 10-acre Guerin manufacturing site under contract for potential redevelopment. He proposes at the appropriate time, I think everyone knows Guerin is looking to move to the industrial park. If this project, Guerin will start design of their project. If all things go according to schedule, Guerin would move about a year from now, at which time Castle Starkville LLC would demo the existing Guerin building and construct about a 90,000 square foot retail project. Yes, sir.
Audi and TJ Maxx are 45,000 of the 90?
Roughly about half of it.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
There are some other retailers that are having pretty advanced conversations with Mr. Castleberry, but these two are in letters of intent stage where we have permission to state that they're strongly interested in being here, and they do represent about half the square footage of the development. That investment will represent about a $20 million investment. Originally, about a month ago, we had an original request that asked the city to consider a few things. Number one, that the city participate in the brownfield program, which would allow the project to recover 2.5 times its environmental remediation cost through sales tax rebate, which is part state money, part city money. That program allows 2.5 times the rebate, which would be approximately $1,250,000. The math on that, the city's participation is about 24% of that incentive. 76% would be state monies. We also asked that the city consider tax increment financing. The resolution before you, and we originally asked to adhere to the previous stormwater detention ordinances. What's before the board tonight is a resolution of intent to issue TIF bonds up to $3 million. That's down from $3.4 million original request. And ultimately, we will agree in a development agreement, assuming that we get to that point, that we'll adhere to whatever drainage requirements that the city desires, working together to find a reasonable solution, recognizing that old ordinances probably don't apply, and 100 year may be too much given the current state of the project. So we'll work in good faith to meet whatever drainage requirements the city ultimately determines as necessary. We believe that going to 100-year flood requirements, stormwater detention requirements, add about $365,000 to our project cost. Ultimately, at the end of the project, if it's determined that we don't have to meet that requirement, we'll take a dollar-for-dollar reduction in the tax increment financing on the back end. The present proposal in front of you calls for the county to pledge 100% of ad valorem tax increases using 75% of their revenue to size the bonds. That's up from original 50% ask. This current proposal suggests that the city would use 100% of ad valorem, pledge and use 100%, reducing from 100% pledge of sales tax down to 75%, using up to half the sales tax to amortize the debt on the bonds. One of the mechanisms that we've talked about with some of the aldermen offline in the development agreement that we would prioritize with the city. Ultimately, I'm acting like I'm you when I say we, but ultimately the city would prioritize the county's ad valorem taxes, the city's ad valorem taxes, and then use as much as necessary of the sales tax to amortize the debt on the bonds. And that's what's in front of you today. I'm happy to go over specific estimates if necessary.
All right, let's see what questions may be.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have specific questions of anyone?
Let's go through, I wasn't in
Alderman
attendance.
Carver.
Can I have the floor?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yes.
I wasn't in attendance Friday at the work session. I saw maybe some figures changed over the last 5 to 10 days. Of those percentages, what has changed and what was the discussion basis for that?
All right, the original ask was for the city to pledge 100% of property taxes and sales taxes and use 1/2 of those revenues to service the debt on the bonds.
Yes, sir.
What is in front of you would have 100% pledge of ad valorem and use 100% instead of 50. Reduce sales tax pledge to 75% and use 50%, which is consistent with the original ask. Ultimately, what that means on paper, based on our estimated sales and the estimated tax revenues, if the project performed exactly like we penciled, never does, sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower, but if it performed exactly as penciled, Mr. Carver, and you allocated 75% of the county property taxes, 100% of the city property taxes, and as much as necessary of the sales tax estimate, on paper, we'd be using about $160,000 in sales tax of $458,000 estimated, which is about 35% of the sales tax on paper.
And it's a 15-year.
Bonds not to exceed 15 years. The TIF statute allows 30-year bonds. We've seen a few 20-year projects across the state from time to time, but 15 years is consistent with what the city's done in the most recent TIFs that we've been involved with.
Anything further, Mr. Carver?
I'm gonna have some closing comments.
Okay. Alderman Sistrum?
And I would just like to say, in making those changes, what the city was trying to do was to recognize that the ad valorem taxes are much more predictable and much easier to collect, and much more certainty that they will be collected, and to recognize that with the sales tax, all of those will not be new taxes. Some of those will be probably walking down the street from some other business. And so we wanted to the extent possible, give us some margin in there that we were not using taxes that we're currently collecting toward a new TIF. And I appreciate the changes that have occurred. I think it's a good project. I think it's meets what we want in a redevelopment project. I would encourage everybody to keep in mind that the TIF bond is probably at least 3 years out into the future, maybe 4 before anything is issued. And so try not to spend up those new sales taxes and get that built into the budget before we issue that bond.
Sure. And let's talk about that timeline, because first of all, Garin has got to get their building built and moved into their building, which is an 18 to 24 month process. So you're 2 years there. And then Mr. Castleberry has got to tear it down, remediate brownfield, et cetera, and then construct. So you're probably another year to 2 years from that. So we may be in the 5-year range.
Well, Mayor, I think Garen's schedule from today is about a year before they move in, plus or minus. And then I think it takes us at least a year to get built. And then we'd have a year of performance to where the sales taxes can be measured and everything's online, allowing for the brownfield. So I think 3 years at a minimum. And then from there, obviously it may take longer if there's delays anywhere.
Sure. Well, and I had heard that Garen's timeline was longer than that. So if it's shortened up some, then that's great, because we would love to have them in a new facility. So anyone else? I do want to say Retail Strategies, unbeknownst to me, apparently has a service that they offer us as a part of our contract with them, and one of that is to evaluate TIFs. And so I sent them the TIF information, and they were in contact with Mr. Gouris, and I got an email back today, which I regret I should have emailed out to everyone, that said that they considered this to be a fair TIF. So just in terms of validating that from an independent source who is also in favor or supportive of the city or an agent for the city, they were complimentary of it. So thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else wish to say anything?
Almost closing comments also.
Would you like to do that now, Alderman Beatty?
I guess. I still start with the premise. And I guess it was new to me after when I moved to Starkville. I had not experienced tax increment financing. I experienced businesses coming, because I was from a smaller place, but asking for tax incentives. And first time I had an experience with this, it was a retail business, it was Walmart. And we just didn't equate Walmart in terms of tax incentives to the 10-year exemptions you gave industries. Industries, when they come and they create living wage jobs, there's a 10-year exemption that you see in the county, and that's pretty much across the state. But I mean, this is to me kind of a fairness issue, and I mean, by granting a tax incentive of this size, we're choosing to give an advantage to a retail development over other retail developments that are already in the city paying taxes. Now, the way I look at it is we kind of pick winners and losers on this kind of stuff. And there's a possibility that we'll see the loss of some business and tax revenue from existing stores. I mean, regardless of what the retail strategy people said, I mean, that's a real possibility. We could even lose a store or two, maybe, possibly, that are on the margins now, that are on the rolls paying property and sales tax to us. I mean, this is a free market. I mean, when everybody's in a level playing field, in a free market economy, everybody playing by the same rules. That's the way things operate. But we're going to allow castle properties to capture basically all abnormal taxes generated on this thing. And you said 75%. If they meet target, 75% of the sales tax. I mean, I think we need to think about the fact that the city's retail trade area is not going to significantly increase in size because of this development. The stores proposed in this center will not have the regional pull like Walmarts and Targets and Kroger's, those kind of stores that increase the size of your retail trade area. Starkville's retail trade area is not going to get bigger. It's just the pie's going to get sliced up differently after the same building. I believe the tax incentives like the one being proposed are somewhat, I mean, almost to us, they're almost abstract. They're abstract to everyone except existing businesses in town that have to write big checks every year for property taxes to the city and county for their Avalon taxes. They understand fundamentally the advantage that tax incentives give the competitors. I mean, we're going to start paying $150,000 a year in TIF bond debt service Academy Sports. Maybe Academy Sports would not have built the store and started without the TIF incentive. I don't know. We'll never know that for sure. But representatives of the Walmart neighborhood market walked out of a city meeting about 2 years ago, and then 30 days later purchased a building permit, built their store, and got on the tax rolls, and we're capturing all their property and sales tax. Please know this too, that the developers of the proposed Pecan Acres redevelopment and the local housing authority are watching this play out very closely. They're taking notes and they're coming. They will also ask for a big tax incentive and will spare no effort to convince the city on how they need a tax incentive to make their project work also. They will also go to great lengths to show how much better off the residents will be when they're relocated to Highway 182 and how much we're going to enjoy the new development. They're just going to need a few $1 million to make that project work. A few $1 million of city money. Parker McGill Chrysler Jeep has been granted a TIF by the city. It hadn't gone on board yet for construction, basically, of a service road, including a bridge and utilities to the site. I called the West Point City Hall and was told today that Parker McGill dealership in West Point is on the tax rolls and the city captures all the property and sales tax from that dealership, from that business. Love's just completed a truck stop plaza in West Point and did not ask for a tax incentive, never asked for one. Columbus has 5 car dealerships, and they're all on property tax rolls, and all of the 18.5% version of the Mississippi sales tax generated on those car dealerships is captured by the city of Columbus. I guess, I hope that, and this one may go through, and I may be the only sitting vote on it, but I hope that we will look at, and really, I think we need to change fundamentally our thinking towards incentivizing retail developments in the city of Starkville. If we were out in the boonies somewhere and we couldn't buy development, it would be one thing. But this is, and I keep saying this, I sound like a broken record. We're a Southeastern Conference college town. There are only 14 of them. And anyone that's been around here in the last couple of years can see the development, the housing development and the retail development that's taking place. I don't think we need to be in the business of incentivizing retail developments to get things to come to Starkville and build here. And maybe sometimes, maybe they don't need to happen until the numbers work for the development. But I think we need to fundamentally change the way we approach incentivizing retail developments. Thank you, Mayor. I yield.
Thank you. Alderman Carver, did you had said you wanted to have
Yeah, and I believe I told one of the reporters this, and it didn't make all of the full disclosure, but I would say I'm pro-TIF in this situation, and much like anything else we do, I look at it discretionary for each and every project. Do I think Walmart needs a TIF to come to the city of Starkville? I do not. I think they got billions in the pockets. I understand the relationship with Castle Starkville LLC, and I've seen the work that organization has done, and I guess through time and relationship, get to know the developer and trust the developer. I did say this in the paper, didn't make the comments, but I do think that you'll see me become much more conservative probably from this project forward in the TIF arena. I do enjoy Alderman Beatty coming onto this board because he brings in a different mindset, and I've worked alongside him, and I appreciate his expertise in this. I do think it's time that the board, in the next year or two, with the growth of the university, and I don't know if that's going to be stagnant in the years to come, but I think at this time this project will work and be a staple for the city of Starkville. I'm very excited if it passes. I'm very excited about these two developments and the others that come with them. I don't know what they are. While this is not in Ward 1, it's 100 feet from the border, and I've got a lot of individuals that we talk about accessibility and quality of life in this town, and there's a lot of individuals from Green Oaks, which is in Ward 1, that would be able to walk across the street just like we always hear from the Pleasant Acres. Pecan Acres group of constituents that they want to be able to walk to a grocery store. This is the same exact situation where an individual will be able to walk across a road. I've had questions on MDOT medians come from somebody, and I didn't understand if there would be any new construction on that. I imagine the ingress and egress will be sufficient for the development. I know there is a turn into Garin and then another one coming out of the guard base. That's on down the road, and then again, I would say in this situation, just looking at each and every one of them individually, I think that this is going to be a great staple for the city, but I'm really interested. I looked up Aldi. I didn't know it was such a big deal until you mentioned it around town. I'm glad it's in the paper because the fan base that Aldi has is unique. But they're trending, I guess it's one of the fastest grocery stores in the nation, maybe worldwide. And that's something that if people are willing to drive an hour, I guess it's the closest one, and 2.5 hours an instance to go to an Aldi. That's something I think we need as a community. And then maybe we get some people half distance between here and Tupelo. They'll choose to drive with us. And while they're here for a ball game, they'll choose to stop by there. So apparently there's a following to an Aldi that I wasn't aware of, but I am now. But yes, I will be in support of this. And I do think that Alderman Beatty's correct that we probably need to be more scrutinous of TIFs in the near future. So.
Alderman Sistrunk, I see your hand.
And I'd like to tag on to a little bit of what Alderman Carver is saying and something that Alderman Beatty mentioned. And this is where I struggle with TIFs is the idea of incremental sales tax. The property taxes, I'm very willing to look at those for a project. On a go-forward basis, I do think we need to be very careful about how we look at the sales tax piece of it and determining what is truly incremental to the community. One of the things that I didn't realize is that those reports that quantify leakage or sales that we're missing here in the city of Starkville, Retail Strategies indicates that we have a $42 million leakage in groceries. And I was shocked by that.
And that's greater than what our consultant
And your
said
consultant gave a much
by
more
double.
conservative
Yes, ma'am.
number, a much more conservative number. Nothing personal about TJ Maxx. I just don't shop much at all these days. But I understand that that's an entity that will bring in people that are currently having to drive over to Columbus or up to Tupelo to shop. So I think there will be some incremental, some new sales, and that's one of the reasons I'm willing to consider this one. The bigger reason for me is this gives us a real opportunity to redevelop that site on a timely basis and to provide some jobs on a really near-term basis, some jobs, which is positive for the community. There's no doubt that at some point that site might redevelop anyway, but it could be years and years before somebody else brings something forward. I understand that Aldi has looked at us for quite a while and did not find a site that they thought was right. And so
TJ Maxx has been looking for about 7 years.
So,
Aldi, a couple
so,
really,
so this is an opportunity. Alderman Carver's absolutely right that we have to evaluate these on a case-by-case basis. Alderman Beatty is right that we need to decide what we want to do on a go-forward basis. But I think this is one that meets the reasons I would say that a TIF is an appropriate financing mechanism. I think the benefits to the community are far greater than the exposure.
Anyone else wishing to make any comments? Anyone else? Okay. I have supported this one once I found out about it and some of the level of detail associated with it. And I do think it is, for all the reasons that have been articulated by both Alderman Sistrunk and Alderman Carver, I do think it's one of those that deserves our support. And I make no bones about that. I do think that Garin, love having them on Highway 12 and being such a good community business, but they want to go somewhere and get a new building, and I applaud that. I'm delighted they're going up to the new industrial park, because I think that it begins that process of other things coming in there. And then I do think Highway 12 is the corridor for that this kind of retail development, and you don't see it much anywhere anymore. People shop online, and so I'm looking forward to this being something that will draw from a wider range around the city of Starkville. And it also shows that there's an interest in being here, and we want to foster that. So I'm pretty excited about this whole thing. Do I have any further discussion, or do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion from Alderman Sistrunk to approve the resolution. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Alderman Carver. All right, further discussion.
I was going to say that I think the point's been noted tonight, but typical vacation or vacancy of a large big box like that, and blight that comes with it could be long-term. And so while this is really focused on these two developments and more to come, you got to remember that it's kind of a twofold win that Garen's moving to the industrial park. It's going to be a first tenant for us there, and then at the same time the redevelopment's going to happen on a pretty expeditious timeline. So, I mean, I just thought, I've seen areas, and we've all seen them, when something sits vacant for years and years, and that time that sometimes dominoes to existing or bordering property. So I just thought this was a good development.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything further? Alderman Vaughn, are you leaning forward?
I think it'll be positive for the city, because me, myself, personally, I get tired of driving to Tupelo to TJ Maxx and to that new food store there, and a lot of people does, and then anytime I'm out of town, I'm just about got to stop at a TJ Maxx for jackets or the children. So, I really think it'd be something. And me knowing that TJ Maxx been trying to get in here for quite a few years, and so we got the opportunity, and I hate to pass the opportunity up now.
Mayor, two
Okay.
things.
Alderman Beatty?
One final. I'm not anti-development, and I appreciate what you said, and Sandra too. I don't want to be perceived, I'm not anti-development. I just want the city to capture some revenue from this not just on the first 3 to 5 years, but on an ongoing basis. And if this thing's built, I don't want to see another store put on the margins that's on the tax roll paying taxes. There again, if everybody's on a level playing field and a new store comes in and they put somebody out of business, that's just it just works that way. But I just don't want to see existing stores who we're capturing sales and property tax from to get marginalized or put out of business by new development that we're not going to capture a lot of tax, very little tax on. And that's just, I don't know. We all like stores, and we want them, we want the convenience of shopping here, but one of the things we have to have as a city is we've got to derive revenue from retail development. We got to derive property tax and sales tax. We put that into our general budget, our general fund, and that's what we pay firemen, policemen, streets, general government services out of. And so, potentially, this thing is not going to pay a lot of tax to us, but yet if Aldi catches fire, our fire department's going to go out there and respond and put the fire out, and other businesses and residents and everybody else that pay property taxes and businesses pay property tax and sales tax, they're funding that fire department. And I guess what I'm saying is, it's just from a fairness standpoint that, and there again, I'll say this one more time, if we were in a place where we had to, TIFs were invented, came into being back in the 1950s, and the first place I've read about them being used was in Los Angeles, in South Central LA, or in Watts, or somewhere where you couldn't get people to come develop. And TIFs were invented or created to incentivize or get developers to go into blighted parts of big cities and redevelop places where otherwise you couldn't get people to do that. But it's gotten to be a popular thing out now in glitzy college towns and places. It's a game. I mean, everybody's doing it now, and they all build their business models on getting tax incentives. It used to, you looked at your numbers. If the numbers worked, you built, and if the numbers didn't work, you held off till the numbers did work. And now, bond people and you know, development people, they build that stuff in on the front end, assume that cities are going to concede, you know, tax income financing tax incentives to them, and it's happening pretty much. It's ubiquitous. I mean, it's happening everywhere now. It's not just Starkville, but you know, we're struggling this year. We're struggling with our budget to make ends meet, and we're facing unfunded mandates. The state of Mississippi said we got to treat more PERS this year, and that's an unfunded mandate. The state of Mississippi put that's a law they passed back in the legislative session. They didn't tell us, they didn't give us any mechanism for paying for it. They just said, you will do it. And so those are unfunded mandates. They're expensive. Our health insurance has gone up. We need to staff a fire department. There's a lot of stuff that we need to do in our budget this year, and we need revenue to do it. And I guess what I'm saying is that I just don't want one development getting a tax incentive, and oh no, here's humping it and paying their taxes, and here's another getting it. But we're getting consistent about the Walmart we did, but we're starting to get back into that thing of granting tax incentives to retail developments, and they're going to create jobs, but these are going to be, a lot of them are going to be part-time jobs, and they're going to be jobs that just over minimum wage and stuff, and they're not going to be the kind of jobs that, say, Garin has or industries in the industrial park that go and try. They're not going to be industrial jobs with all the benefits and stuff that we're accustomed to when we give tax incentives to industries. So, I don't know. That I'll give it back to you.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Alderman Carver?
I was just going to say, you know, and that'd be my greatest concern of any business coming in. And that's what I've thought about is, you know, I guess through the 80s and 90s, at any time a Walmart came into a town, the fear was that it was going to put mom and pop's businesses out of business. So I mean, obviously in a capitalistic market, you've got that concern. You see it right now in Dollar Generals. I mean, they're popping up in really the smaller markets. They're nationwide, but extreme growth right now with them. And I've heard the case, but I think we changed our retail strategy. And this market in this town is not a town of 24,000 and 21,000, 22,000 students. I think that the market now can support this. I do think there's going to need to be some, you know, I think that this board, my personal opinion on my vote will be over the next few years, especially to start heavily scrutinizing or looking into TIFs and making sure, because Alderman Beatty's exactly right. It's turned into a business model perspective, especially in college towns, and while that's not a bad thing, I think you definitely don't want to oversaturate the market. But as far as this being a case by case, you know, basis, I'm definitely in favor of this one. I was in favor of Academy Sports, and I think sometimes you need to look at the individual business and how it's trending, and do I think that an Aldi's going to be here in 10 to 15, 20 years? Most definitely. When I really started doing my case study on that business within itself and TJ Maxx within itself, it's not a trend that's trending down by any means. It's probably one of the fastest upward curves you'll see on a bell. So I'll support this one. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. I have a motion and a second. There's no further discussion. If I would, please, well, if you would signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's weak. Let's do this. We'll do a roll call vote. If we could, please signify by saying aye when the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Aye.
Alderman Sistrunk.
Aye.
Alderman Little.
Aye.
Alderman Walker.
Aye.
Alderman Beatty.
No.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Nay.
Alderman Vaughn.
All right, thank you. By a vote of 5-2, motion carries.
Thank you. We'll see you on the.
Thank you,
third
Mr. Gurris.
public
Appreciate your
hearing. Appreciate your
presentation.
consideration.
All right, thank you. The next item up is a resolution for authorizing the reimbursement for certain expenditures for purpose and project of the proceeds of bonds and the qualified obligation, and I'm skipping language, but it's for the sports tournament and recreational facilities, so, and it's, who we got presenting those? Are you gonna, Mr. Is Lynn gonna do this? Mr. Norris? Okay,
I think, if I may.
you may.
I think that this just protects our ability to use the bond proceeds, but make expenditures in advance of the bond proceeds, and use bond proceeds to reimburse the city for those expenses. Is that correct?
It is, Alderman. It's the first step in the bond issuance process for Cornerstone Park. It allows the city to seek reimbursement expenses for expenses that it does expend prior to the bond proceeds coming in. The key sentence is in section 1, where it says the governing body hereby declares its intention to pursue the issuance of the bonds. So again, it gets the ball rolling on the bond project for Cornerstone Park.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if Lynn was, or Mr. Norris was supposed to make a presentation or not. Mr. Carver?
I was just going to ask, miss a discussion on this. Is this abnormal business to the city attorney? Is this abnormal business, or is this anything of any concern? I haven't seen this exact before, so.
No, it just puts on the books, on the record, that the city's going to seek reimbursable expenses from the bond proceeds.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's because we haven't expended bond, or we haven't issued bonds, so this allows us to.
And legally, we are allowed to look to those bonds for reimbursement, and I think Mr. Norris will nod vigorously that that's the case. So,
Okay, all right, thank you.
And I'd like to move approval,
All
Mayor.
right, I have a motion for approval from Alderman Sistrunk. Do I have a second? Second. Second from Alderman Little. Further discussion? Questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, by a vote of 5-2, motion carries. Thank you. And this one was removed from consent. This is a resolution for the issuance of general obligation public improvement bond series 2019. This is for our capital improvement projects. This is the remaining $3 million. Any discussion on that? Alderman Sistrunk?
I move approval. This is a continuation of the project that we began.
This is our paving,
To
drainage,
use, yes.
sidewalk, et cetera.
I'll second.
I have a motion for Alderman Sistrunk, a second from Alderman Beatty. Further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, next item is under planning. We have several special events coming up. This one is for the Travis Outlaw Day, and by the way, Ms. Outlaw said to tell everyone hello. She is not going to be here. I have a motion for approval from Alderman Little. I have a second.
Second.
Second from Alderman Carver.
Chief, you cooking this year?
Discussion?
Mayor, may I be recognized?
Vice Mayor Perkins, you may.
Yeah, Mayor, thank you very much. Just want to say for the record here that the list of special events, based on my recollection, is steadily growing, and we're talking about revenue. And I want to thank the gentleman, my neighbor here from Ward 5, for his very detailed comments on that TIF matter last time. We're all about revenue, and the growing objection and continuing objection I have on these special events is that it's just draining our revenue, and we're having to face all ways and means to generate revenue. So this is the growing concern. It's very obvious why a lot of these events are continuously come up before the board, but we're asked to provide in-kind services, and that, in my opinion, just has a very ongoing, substantial, and grave impact on our budget. So I just want those citizens and other listeners, as they see these continuous nay votes from the vice mayor, why that they are continuously occurring, because it's just a great impact in a negative way on our budget, and it's a lot of cost for our city staff to be continuously providing these in-kind services without recouping any of the money from these event planners and organizers. So, Mayor, I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
All right, by a vote of 5-2, motion carries. Do I have a motion for the next special event, which is Pumpkin Palooza?
Move approval.
Motion from Alderman Sistrunk. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Carver. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, vote of 5-2, motion carries. Special event by the partnership to hold the Unwind Downtown, November the 15th. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
I have a motion from Alderman Walker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Sistrunk. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 5-2. Special event, last special event would be for the Christmas parade to be held on December the 2nd. Do I have a motion? I have a motion from Alderman Little. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Sistrunk. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have consideration of a preliminary plat approval. Mr. Haviland.
EP 1906. This is a request by Jason Pepper on behalf of Crabtree Properties for preliminary plat approval for subdividing a .43 acre parcel into 2 lots. The proposed subdivision is named 507 Whitfield Street and is located in an R2 zoning district at 507 Whitfield Street. The plat proposal has been reviewed by the Development Review Committee and requested changes were made to the plat. The newly created lot, which is Lot 2, would be addressed and front McKee Street. The applicant will submit infrastructure plans to Development Review Committee upon approval of the preliminary plat. The infrastructure plans in this case, since it is just dividing an existing lot, is mainly just dealing with the sidewalk construction. All easements are provided on the preliminary plat, and the proposed sidewalks are shown on the preliminary plat. There were 9 recommended conditions as part of this preliminary plat approval, or recommendation of approval by planning and zoning, and it's pretty much our standard 9 conditions that go along with preliminary plats. If you have any questions, I'd like to answer.
Any questions of Mr. Haviland? Okay, do we have a motion?
Yep. Take that back.
Well,
We have-
I'm sorry, I apologize. Let me get the applicant up. I apologize. Is the applicant here? Mr. Pepper, I didn't mean to ignore you.
Be glad to answer any questions. Yeah,
Okay,
but I don't have any further to add.
nothing further? Okay.
No.
Alderman Walker.
So the only question I have is I'm certainly ready to support this tonight. Just in looking at the lot number 2 that's going to be created by this, what's in the dashed red line area, I'm assuming that's showing what would be allowed given the setbacks?
That's the buildable area.
The
yes.
buildable area.
Yes.
And so the one, I don't anticipate on McKee Street that the board is going to approve a mobile home on that street. And just to say that, given that setback, I would not be surprised, nor would I expect the future board to be surprised if there is some variance request. When you look at what's left over, you got, 20 or so, 22 feet of width of buildable area?
We have a footprint that will fit that setback.
Okay.
We, as of right now, have not been told we will be asking for any variance.
Okay, and so there's a plan, that's the reason for this subdivision, subdividing this lot, is that there's anticipated for that to be developed?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, with that, I move approval.
Okay, I have a motion for approval from Alderman Walker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Carver. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That's unanimous. Request for preliminary plat for 3.39 acre parcel into 2 lots on Scale Street. Mr. Haviland.
EP 1907 is a request by Jason Pepper on behalf of Crabtree Properties for preliminary plat approval for subdividing a .39 acre parcel into 2 lots. The proposed subdivision is named 401 Scale Street and is located in an R2 zoning district at 401 Scale Street. The preliminary plat has been reviewed by the Development Review Committee and requested changes were made to the plat. The newly created Lot 1 would be addressed and front Scale Street. The applicant will submit infrastructure plans, develop a review committee upon approval of the preliminary plat. And again, this is dealing with the construction of the sidewalks that are required. All easements are provided on the preliminary plat, and all proposed sidewalks are shown on the plat. And there are also the sort of standard 9 preliminary plat conditions being requested as part of this.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pepper, anything you'd like to add to any of this?
No.
Okay.
Answer any questions you have.
Okay. Alderman Walker.
Again, only question I have, Mr. Havlin or for Mr. Pepper, is it looks like the new city sidewalk that would be constructed. Is there the easement language that goes along with that to be make sure that
Yes.
that is essentially city, even though it's going to be on private property?
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor, move approve.
Okay, and that's with the conditions of P and Z?
As with the conditions as listed.
And we'll revisit the other one just to make sure that that was clear as well. I have a motion from Alderman Walker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Little. Further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And let's be clear, the previous one that you did was also with the conditions associated with P and Z?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Just for the record.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, and the next one is preliminary and final plat approval. Mr. Havlin.
First of all, on this one, I just want to apologize. The staff report that's in the packet, there was an error on my part in getting that to the city clerk, and the last couple of images that were in the original packet were incorrect. I've printed out copies of the current one, the correct one, and they should have been placed out. And this is a preliminary plat and a final plat approval at the same time. There's really no infrastructure to be built as part of this, so we're going to kind of just give one presentation on the whole thing. It's PP 1908 and FP 1907. This is a request by Willis Owens with Pritchard Engineering on behalf of Heritage Building Corp. for preliminary and final plat approval for subdividing a 3.81 acre parcel into 2 lots. Proposed subdivision is named Mississippi Department of Rehabilitation Services and is located in M1 zoning district at 313 Industrial Park Road. This is the approved site plan. Currently, the building on the right is nearing completion. The proposed plat is to separate the building that is on the right of the previous slide from the other lot to create 2 lots. There are 3 requested conditions as part of this. These are also sort of standard final plat type conditions, and if there are any questions.
Okay. Is the applicant here?
And I would like to point one other thing out. You can see on here there's a 20-foot wide easement that's shown in the red hatch. That is the driveway that's been constructed. That will be their access to this property. They're not going to build additional access to the front. And then there's also a second easement on there for the sidewalk that was built as part of the approved site plan that will serve as the sidewalk connection to this building, will be accessible by the public.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anything you'd like
I'm
to
here
add?
to answer any questions if you have any.
If you would state your name.
Willis Owens.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Any questions of Mr. Owens or Mr. Havlin? All right, do I have a motion?
Motion.
I have a motion from Alderman Beatty. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Walker. Further discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. It's unanimous. Thank you so much. All right, next item is claims docket.
Move approval.
I have a motion from Alderman Sistrunk. Did I hear a second? Alderman Little. Second from Alderman Little. Discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 5-2. And that concludes our open session. I need a motion to go into.
Closed session, Mayor.
I have a motion to go into closed session to determine the need for executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Alderman Beatty. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. It's unanimous. If you would, please clear the room. We're going to go into a All right, the board has voted to go into executive session to discuss pending litigation relating to a stop work order. If you would, clear the room, please, and we thank you. The board took no action in executive session. And just as far as announcements, there will be a work session of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen on Friday, August the 30th at 1:15, Starkville City Hall, located 110 West Main Street. Public and press are invited to attend. The notice will be posted within an hour of calling this meeting, and we will look forward to having folks there and that will be in preparation for the September the 3rd regular session of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen. I have a motion
Say
to adjourn.
1:15?
Excuse me.
1:15?
1:15. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I have a motion from Alderman Vaughn. Do I have a second? Second from Alderman Walker. All those in favor, so signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all.